to begin with, so that we reiterate, of course, all of you would know, but agri and allied space in our country contributes $368 billion to our economy, employs 55% of our population, and AgriTech has the potential to contribute $24 billion in the next 4 years. And these are huge, significant, and massive numbers. And today with me, I'm joined by some of the most resilient, most, if I may say so, understated, most resilient, impactful entrepreneurs that I've had the fortune to know over the years. And I'm going to be talking to all of you today to understand. First, if you could tell us about the business that you're building, and then we'll straight jump into how do you see the impact that AgriTech space can have in our country. Kunal, shall we begin with you?
Okay, thanks, Shraddha. This was so kind of you to invite us over here and talk about this very interesting topic. Myself, Kunal, I'm the co-founder and the chief operating officer at Croppin. We are an agri-tech company which started off in 2010 with a vision to transform the agriculture sector leveraging technology. In the due course of 10 years, what we have done is we have built a fully integrated digital platform, a full stack approach, where we have approached the agriculture value chain players, which are into farming sector, seed sector, input sector, banks and financial and insurance companies, and the government and development agencies to impact farmers by bringing the best-in-class technology for them. And what do you mean by the best-in-class technology for the farmers? It means that the farmers should be knowing what should be the practices that he should follow so that he can increase his productivity, he can reduce his risk, and he can reduce his cost from agriculture. And what for the value chain we bring is we bring a complete digital infrastructure so that they can manage their thousands and tens of thousands of farmers on one single approach. So if you're a bank, you can actually look at the risk score of lending to a farmer, and with a click of a button, you can actually lend that. If you are a farming company, you can actually see your 10,000 farmers which are growing potatoes in a certain area, that whether the farmers have gone for growing potatoes, what is the stage of the crop, are the farmers facing any pest and disease or any stress, and you can act on based on that. So with the digital infrastructure, we have created that transparency so that the farmers could benefit, the extension workers could have a much strengthened platform for them to engage, and the business could be really and knowing about real time what's happening. From an impact perspective, we started in India till 2015. We were building the best-in-class tech platforms. We worked across almost 20 plus states, and now we have taken this platform globally, and very happy to share that we have been able to impact close to 2.1 million farmers in more than 56 countries as on date.
Now, before we proceed, I just want to tell everyone that I've known Kunal for 10 years and a journey to reach where he is. And I just want to say for everyone in the AgriTech, it's not consumer internet, the so-called sexy space. They've been resilient, and Croppin was called Cropix, and then Croppin, the sheer resilience with which he's built and you and your team have built the business is very, very remarkable. And recently you've raised also a significant amount of money. So it just says that, stories are not built overnight. So Kunal, look forward to talking more as we go along. Shashank.
Sure, Shraddha. Thanks for having me. I'm going to talk about our model and technology called DeHaat. It's a full stack platform for farmers. The problem statement DeHaat has picked up is that in India, most of the farmers are small, more than 75-80% of them. And they have different agricultural requirement related to input, advisory, output, financing. And the irony is that at ground level for all these different agricultural requirements, they have to chase different people who are not synchronized. So as a solution, DeHaat brings everything related to agriculture under one roof for those small and marginal farmers. And of course, it's been 8.5, 9 years, you have already set the tone. This entire model has been evolving over the years, but where we are today, that we have entire bundle of agri value chain services for farmers. The beauty is that it's pretty crop agnostic. It's purely farmer centric. That means whichever crop you are growing, whether it's staples, pulses, horticulture, you get end-to-end agri services on the platform. You get best agri input sources, you get data-driven customized crop advisory, and of course, the most important thing, the market linkage of the farm produce. very recently, we have also integrated financial services. So that's all about DeHaat. The vision is to aggregate more than 10 million Indian farmers in next couple of years, and to give them the entire bouquet of services to make those farmers accessible as well as transactable for different agri businesses. Because this is just one end of the story, right? The way how we look at the industry, that in the space, there are businesses, right? You already said that it's close to $400 billion market. There are businesses who have got right or some proposition for farmers, but where they have been struggling, that they don't have direct access to farmers. And that's the reason why industry holds bunch of inefficiency, such as 40% post-harvest loss, close to 35% input market share that still belongs to local and spurious brand. Despite a strong mandate of bank, less than 15% Indian farmers have got access to structured financing. And I know I can go on, but the whole construct of DeHaat is to bring businesses and farmers together in a transparent way, in an efficient way. In terms of impact, again, being from Bihar, we started from Bihar. We remain focused in the eastern part of India, and that was our way to kind of continue this journey to go deeper and deeper in an existing geography. So we picked the eastern part of India, where close to 400,000 farmers, they are active. So on day-to-day basis, they are buying some seed fertilizer through us. They are selling their produce through us. They are raising their advisory-related queries. And now slowly we are moving out of the geography where we are targeting states like Rajasthan and MP. But yes, as I said earlier, the goal is to aggregate more than 10 million farmers in next couple of years.
Wow. Shashank, I have to tell everyone watching right now that, one of the remarkable things, there's so many remarkable things about what you're building, but one thing that stands out is that, when we have all these amazing education and degrees and fancy degrees, and you have some very good degrees, is that, people stay in different parts. Nobody goes back to Bihar. And for me, what has stood out that you've been in Patna and building, the only startup, when people ask for many years, we kept on saying, in your company, right? DeHaat, because here was a story where you moved and built something. Again, not an overnight story, but what a phenomenal and incredible story. Thank you for joining today. Thank you. Anil.
Morning, everyone. It's a privilege to be among friends. I completely agree with you, Shraddha. Croppin and Kunal and Krishna inspire us because they have been around for so long when nobody looked at agriculture as a proposition for an engineer of all the people. And also knowing Shashank for the last 4.5 years has been a wonderful thing. We are Samunnati. Samunnati is a value chain finance enabler. We started off as a non-bank finance company looking at providing customized proposition to agriculture from the debit credit perspective, from the finance perspective. But soon we realized that in the sphere of agriculture, Samunnati focuses entirely on agriculture and nothing else. We realized that finance is important but not sufficient. You need to do much more than finance, is when we embarked on two purposes for which the organization exists. One is, how do we make the value chains that Samunnati works in operate at a higher equilibrium? In other words, bring in more energy, more throughput in the value chains that we operate in. And how do we take that energy, that throughput back to smallholder farmers to pursue the mission of making markets work for smallholder farmers? That's what we are looking at doing. So on the demand side of the value chain is where most of the buying and selling happens, as we know. And we realized that working capital is a major constraint, and removing the working capital as a constraint would make the value chains operate at a higher equilibrium. But working capital being a constraint in value chains is not unique, is not new. All the value chains have that, where the seller wants money immediately, the buyer wants to pay later. But then what makes it more acute in agriculture is also seasonal and cyclical. So when everybody needs money is when money is not there. Yeah. And that's where removing the working capital constraint would make the value chains operate at a higher equilibrium. And that's what we provide. We have products ranging from 1 day to 5 years, and quantum ranging from 3,000 rupees to about 20 crores per loan. The way that we engage with the farmers is through collectives, through farmer producer organizations, FPOs, and the approach that we have is what we refer to as AMLA approach: aggregation, market linkage, and advisory services. Set of people doing the same economic activity coming together is what aggregation is. And aggregation is with a purpose for collective benefit. So how would this collective benefit accrue? Only when they are able to buy inputs together at a cheaper price before the season starts, and also be able to sell their output together with some primary level processing or first level processing. For both these to happen, market linkages are important. And the moment you say market linkages, working capital becomes important again, because market linkages and working capital are two sides of the same coin. So market linkages, in our view, is more important than finance. That has been our insight in this journey. Now, once the aggregation and market linkages are done, is when the advisory services become important. Advisory services for us, again, has two dimensions. One dimension is the external facing dimension. How do we make the FPO respond to the market requirement in terms of demands, in terms of what to produce, what to sell, where to buy, all of that. And the second dimension of advisory services is inward looking, the institution building. How do we build the institution capacity of the FPO to be able to act as an entrepreneur, as an enterprise? So that's where digitization, SOPs, compliance software, accounting software, card-based solution, all of that become relevant. So that's what we have been pursuing. We are about 5 years at scale. We have done about 6,000 crores in both these dimensions so far, operate in about 20 states, 500 people, and chugging along.
Yeah, but Anil, I have to say that to all of us and to all the panelists also, you are such a powerful example of the kind of scale and genuine, real, transformative scale that you built with your organization. Yeah, and then it's a great honor to be interacting with you today. Thank you.
Thank you for the kind words.
CM, I have to say before you do, you have the babyest startup right now, if that is a word, baby startup, but you've been with farmers and you were the CEO of a Startup Innovation Hub in Hubli, and I've seen you very closely, how much you've done for the Hubli ecosystem, and now you have a baby startup, so tell us about that.
Sure. Thank you, Shraddha. Thanks for having me along with all the AgriTech startup, whom I call as possible unicorns of the country, I would say. So just a small correction, Shraddha. The way how we at Krishikalpa is actually a Section 8 company. I don't call myself a startup, but startups of a startup is what I would love to call ourselves as, because we are in the games that how do we play a catalyst role so that we take a bunch of agriculture startups to the villages, and that's where I saw a gap. And bunch of the founders, including Prashant, Ashok, Manoj, they all are actually trying around this idea. And then I said, I have built an ecosystem in Hubli, what you said just now. I thought I relatively understand a bit on the agriculture sector. I said, now if I have to give a small analogy, vehicles are like a startup, village is like a farmers. So you don't have a conducive road which actually makes all the vehicles travel to the village. So we wanted to see that can we work along with government to lay that entire infrastructure roads so that any startup can actually interact with all the farmers, and bulk of the work, what is being doing at the FPO level, it could be segregation, it could be sorting, it could be value additions, and then thereby FPO gets much of the work done. And I feel that agri sector is the only one sector which has got a huge potential to create a lot of rural jobs. I don't think any other sector in the country has got that particular sector. And we thought that this is an opportunity, and we created a Section 8 company, a not-for-profit company again, where we work with the three-dimensional institutes. One at the institution level. When I say institution, it includes universities, VC firms, KVKs, research centers, one side of the spectrum. Other side of the spectrum is the FPOs, SHGs, and village FIG groups. And the other one is a startup, agri and agri-allied startup. So there is a lot of these things are actually interacting with not so seamlessly. There need to be a personal rapport, which is happening today. We are trying to build a stack along with the support of government and trying to see, can we make these three sectors interact each other much faster so that the outcome, what we wanted to see in next 10 years, can it happen in next 3 years? And that's the power of acceleration is what we thought. And that's the role of catalyst, what we are trying to play at Krishikalpa. Very happy to be talking to all the people, and three people whom we have here. I've already talked to them and already trying to establish some of the relationship. How can we take them to the rural parts of the country? And we are beginning with the horticulture as a major crop and see how it exactly goes further from now here.
Thank you. And I just have to say this, that we put this together because I met you and then we just quickly decided and we're doing this. Coming back to all of you, the question today I want to ask each one of you, how do you see the role of AgriTech and your business, but AgriTech in particular, reaching to all the farmers in our country, because technology has created impact in different domains, and we keep talking about technology. It brings efficiency, it brings transparency, it democratizes the way we do things. How do you think technology can reach all the farmers, and what should we be doing as a country to enable this to happen in an accelerated manner? Yeah, Anil.
May I go, Shraddha? Thanks.
Yeah.
Two things. Again, the banker in me responds first. So aligning the incentives is an important dimension. No technology has got adopted if the users, the intended users and the future users have not seen a merit in using the technology, in adopting the technology. So aligning the incentives is an important dimension. And I often mention about the ability to add tangible uplift to the immediate income of the farmer is an important dimension for the farmer to adopt technology. Look at all technologies that you have and in our daily life as well. WhatsApp is not a messaging service. It's a business, P2P or C2C kind of a business engine, if you see now. And specific to agriculture, if you see, many of the harvesting, techniques that we see, the harvesters, the mechanization are all because the labor availability is difficult. Last but not the least, if you also see dairy as a sector, the way people adopted the entire artificial insemination and the other technologies that are relevant are because there is a direct tangible correlation between using this technology leading to a delta immediately.
Yeah.
That is at the farmer level. The moment you look at the FPOs and the other mainstream players, including banks, if you are able to provide a business proposition to them to expand their business by using technologies, when they would come in, for sure. So aligning the incentives and bringing in the attribution possibility that you use A and this is the outcome is an important dimension for adopting the technology. And the technology exists now. We are in an era where there is enough proof to showcase that using such methods would have a direct correlation to the income levels. It's not a hypothesis anymore. There is enough to showcase.
Yeah.
Last but not the least, we have to also collaborate as many players, because several technologies that are coming up, several initiatives that are coming up could actually build in a synergy if we go together to the farmer, than farmer having to integrate all this.
Yeah.
So just to add to Anil's point, so actually, if you bring in technology, it actually reduces the cost for every single stakeholder, because the fundamental belief is that if the technology is brought in, it will basically reduce the inefficiency that exists, right? And if you see from the farmer's perspective, we have 140 million farmers, and the challenge in India is that it is such a large number of farmers compared to US, where you have only 600,000 farmers, right? Now it's the technology is the only way where you can reach to this scale and at a much lesser cost with much more efficiency, right? To give you an example, if we are knowing about these 140 million farmers, where they're located, what crops they're growing, this information itself becomes a gold mine for every single player to come and interact on top of that. So from a farmer's perspective, the input companies can come and actually give a better deal to the particular farmer. The financing company, like say Anil's business, can actually come and understand that where is the opportunity for him to come and lend to the farmer, lending for the crop loans, for the input loans, for the tractor loans and things like that. The markets which are buying from the farmer, they will be aware that what is happening, where the crops are growing, when it will be ready, so that they can come and procure from those farmers. The warehousing companies can actually plan their inventories in advance, so that their losses in the supply chain of 30%, what Shashank mentioned, could be reduced to as much as possible, right? So I think the inefficiency can be brought down to a substantial percentage if technology can be brought. And there are technologies across, from the seed till the plate. There are immense amount of technology which are existing, and if you bring it together in knit format, I think the doubling of the farmer income is much lesser. We can actually triple the farmer's income in the coming time.
Yeah.
Sure. So I think just to add, Shraddha, so see, we are in a country, or if we look at the wallet share or wallet size of farmer, right? So the profile of user here is with the net annual income of just 70,000 rupees. Right? That means monthly, roughly 6,000, daily, just 200. That's where most of the decision-making process begins, right? I mean, with what is made for them, what is not, right? So I think the common thing or the best thing AgriTech startups or AgriTech is doing is bringing down the unit cost to serve a farmer. Right? And which is common with most of the AgriTech. Even in case of DeHaat, can you believe that we are in a position to provide complete data-driven, customized advisory to farmer for all crops they are growing for the full year at just cost of 130, 140 rupees. Right? And of course, I mean, that's where your journey begins, right? I mean, of course, I mean, farmers they're not going to pay you for advisory. But again, I mean, once you do this, then you build gateway for many other things. Okay? Yeah. And as Anil mentioned, right, that that collaboration. If the tech is the backbone, then collaboration is easier, transparent, right, and trustworthy too. And then, of course, I mean, again, going back to the user profile, right? I mean, who needs bouquet of services, as I mentioned, but conventionally, they are businesses, right? It's not something that, that any of the AgriTech startup is building any new business from scratch. No, this is something which has been existing, right? But there is a long tail. There are number of layers of intermediaries and parallel layers. And then all layers have their own individual P&L. So AgriTech can probably reduce those layers. AgriTech can probably consolidate the P&L and hence can bring the efficiency. And the first part was transparency at a unit cost. Historically, corporates, they tried, right? Tried to go to get closer to farmers, right? But again, I mean, they could not succeed because of not having right cost, because they had huge cost, fixed cost at ground level while acquiring a farmer, while serving a farmer. And at the same time, they had limited services, right, in any specific brand or any specific crop. And that's how the unit economics did not support them. That's where AgriTech as a concept or as a fraternity, can bring the difference, which is now slowly, steadily, which is getting visible.
Yeah.
So I think, Shada, just only one point, because most of these people have actually mentioned the crux of what AgriTech can bring in. I think as Shashank mentioned, the amount what is a disposable income available to farmer is very low. And I think technology is the only way where they can actually give it a marginal price, but bouquet of services. And if at all we are able to channelize this, knowing the wisdom what an agriculture sector is bringing it out, I think there is where the entire horizon opens up. It's like a gateway of Bharat. The moment when you bring everything at your fingertips, and particularly now the era is even more fruitful because we have a digital information structure available, infrastructure available, and farmers are now using tech to the best of their abilities time. Their farmers' sons are even more proactive. Not that only the farmer is, because they're younger ones who are now a lot more tech savvy. So is why also the timing is right in many ways, because you have somebody in his house who knows how to use basic technology, and here is where the entire services are being opened up. I think that's the reason why the tech plays a crucial role in opening up the biggest window what's available for the entire agriculture sector.
Yeah, I want to ask all of you, and Shashank, Kunal, Anil, and CM, you also in your last stint with in Hubli, how do you, one of the big things is how do you reach the farmers? Like, if you could decode, because that Facebook may ad karke if you're a consumer internet company, or you can do ads, and this is how you reach your target audience. How do you reach your target audience who are farmers when you're building an agri-tech business?
I think if I may go
How
first,
did you reach? How did you all reach?
So somebody want to go first? Can I go first? So I think if I may look at it, the way how farmers have been looked at, it is that there are nodes, basically, I would say FPOs kind of thing, where there is a collection of farmers coming together. Because
say the full form of FPO.
Farmer producer organizations. Okay, this is the entity being formed by government, where a group of farmers can come together. I think the minimum numbers are required about 500 to 800 or 1,000 at time. There are been few FPOs. There are more than 4,000 farmers as well. And India is a market of where a lot of marginal farmers are there, and they don't have the buying power or the capacity to drive the market. But if these farmers collectively come together and form some of these entities, of course, if you look at bylaws, they are almost similar to limited companies. They have the same laws what they have it. But unfortunately, not many of them are entrepreneurial in nature. I think there is where the tech startups come to a play, where if at all and that's a big opportunity. I see for any entrepreneurs, a problem is an opportunity. And if at all they're able to fix these opportunities in a larger scale, because if you get connected to one FPO, you in a way get connected to about close to 500 to 600 farmers in one particular pocket. And if you can double it out, and also now a lot of this rural base has got the agriculture graduates who are wanting to do something in this sector now. I think predominantly earlier they were all wanting to go for a banking sector, but now the thematic is being changing is what I'm observing there. A lot of these people want to go and do a pilot. At least when I was in Hubli, many of these newborn startups who want to tie it out, they used to go to reach out for FPOs and then collect that 100 farmers who are a little bit progressive thinkers and then reach it out. And see, this is a key. I mean, you cannot go to the business without knowing the farmer. And it's literally impossible for one to decode entire group of farmers reach individually. So rather reach via these consortiums or SHGs or some of these FIG groups. I think that would be the best way to reach them out. I agree that not many of them are operating at their best efficiencies, but there is some mechanism which government has already set up. Instead of, if at all we want to change a systematic problem, better work with the systems and then change the system rather than completely being outside the system and then trying to change everything. I think the key lies in getting connected with the farmers, mandis, farmer producer organizations, SIGs, work with agents like NABARD. I think that's where the key is all about, is what I feel personally.
But the question here, and of course, please, all of you answer on this, is also when it comes to farmers in our country, there also we don't have equality, right? It's not equitable and all farmers are not same. By Shashank, you said that their basic income every day could be 200 rupees, but there are different parts of the country, and coming to the what we are seeing in the center happening, the whole agitation and everything. And I'm talking particularly from the regions which are traditionally called Bimaru, which I feel is so unfair, but true. That belt of farmers do not have all those exposures which a farmer maybe from Punjab or different parts would have. How can you leverage technology to create equitable playing field even for farmers, and especially in the eastern part, and especially in all the parts which are not as flourishing as some parts of the country? And what are some of the opportunities? What are some of the things that needs to be done? And also from the government, what do you think some of the things government can do?
I can go here. So no, you're absolutely right. I mean, in our case, in case of DeHaat, again, what's the best way to reach out to farmer? It's a journey. And even today, if someone asks that, what's your biggest challenge? We say it's not the model, because model is proven, unit economics is pretty healthy. There is a strong validation, buyers, suppliers, investors, all are pretty much okay. But still, as on date, the biggest challenge is the most efficient way to reach out to farmer. And I strongly believe that it's a journey. 9 years ago, it was all about going and meeting every individual farmer one-on-one, right? Then there was then the next step was through feature phone, right? Through IVRs. And now, of course, when many farmers, even in the eastern part of India, close to 50 to 20% are smartphone users, right? I mean, just last year, I was attending one of the farmers meeting, and then one farmer suddenly, stood and he said, "Aapke paas gateway nahi hai kya?"
Yeah.
Right? So yes, of course. I mean, while the overall, the funnel, it doesn't look healthy, but things are changing drastically, Shraddha.
Yeah.
And that's how kind of, our approach to reach out to farmer is changing too. But yes, to answer your question, like what we have done, that, we've really worked hard to build the advisory content. It's region specific, it's farmer specific, it's crop specific. Right? And that's where when any individual farmer enrolls, whether through call center, whether through app, or even through paper or pen for that matter, right? I mean, we get to know that which crop they're growing, right? I mean, which of the region they belong to. And then from very next day, they start getting advisory content, right? On a weekly basis. And it's pretty regional, right? In regional language, in regional context, right? Because the same pest or disease attack of a certain crop is known by 20 different names in 20 different districts or location altogether, right?
Yeah.
So that's where kind of, then that's where, I mean, in our case, I mean, that's the hook, right? Or that's the first touch point or first sort of, trigger point for farmer to come forward and to start exploring DeHaat. Of course, in our case, it's not just the information. Our touch point with farmer is very, I would say, ops heavy, because we have to supply seed, fertilizer, pesticides to them. We have to buy their crop. So this entire approach of this advisory or farmers acquisition, it's the region specific or location specific, wherever we have our warehouses or whichever geography we are working, right? So that again again, technology helps there, because you can easily do the pin code fencing and all those things, right? So of course, things are getting better in terms through technology, but in relative terms, still, I think this is the one question, right? We always live with on day-to-day basis at DeHaat, that what's the best way to reach out to farmer? Because 400,000 farmers standalone, it looks a good number, but when you look at the nation, right, where you have more than 140 million farmers, and you have a right model to take this to each and every individual farmer, then you are forced to think that no, there has to be a better way to reach out to farmer. The second the question, of course, government, I think collaboration is the answer. I think all the agri-tech startups, they all have some complementary proposition for the nation with the government. I think it's all about having a right mindset or attitude, which is again visible. So there is a silver line, right? There are different avenues where government, state government, central government is collaborating, or at least inviting startups to come to talk about them, right? And to some sort of RFPs, pilots, whether it's related to Agri-Infra Fund, whether it's related to your soil test, whether it's related to your loan scheme, Fasal Bima Yojana, right? So a lot of things are happening. It just kind of has to be continued at higher altitude and higher magnitude. But I think government.
But I have to say, Shashank, you and Kunal and Anil, when you are building, I think somewhere also what happens is that when you're building scalable and you show success and you attract the capital that all of you have attracted, then automatically it creates a kind of a look to the, it's also about getting to know the stories. And now that you guys have proved it over the years, I'm sure there'll be more attractiveness, if I may say so, to the space.
There will be more.
But the question,
sorry, go on.
No, but the question I want to ask Shashank, you, Kunal, Anil, CM, is on how do we create. One is now that you're saying, Shashank, that there is a movement happening, and now you with your startup, farmers have something to consume and to see how they can grow better crops or what's happening. How do we create a level playing field when it comes to farmers? Because I was just thinking, like in some part we have overproduced, right? And wastage is happening. And in some part, farmers are debt-ridden still. And it's a fact which we used to see when we were growing up in movies. And it's still a fact. How do we create an equitable? And you guys come into the picture. How do you think that can happen?
So if you take my perspective here on Shraddha, and on the last question as well, right? So I think technology, and primarily when you talk about AI in agriculture, that's going to play a massive role in the way we would be able to attract the participation of smallholder farmers. And the smallholder farmers, when I'm talking about the farmers which are in the eastern part of India, right? Now what are we doing from a technology perspective, right? Reaching out to 140 million farmers with people going to meet them is not possible, right? So there has to be alternative way of doing that engagement. So that's where we play, that's where we bring the AI component. And what we do from the AI component is we have smartly used satellite data, because what you do is you have the ground data of the farmers, which is available. So the government, the good thing about public-private partnership is the government is digitizing the farmlands, right? The farm records, the land record department is doing that. And we have this massive amount of data which is available for us to consume. That, okay, in this particular part in Orissa, these are all of the districts where every farmer is digitized, right? Now, what we do is we overlay that data with a satellite data. And then we predict that what is the crop that the farmer is growing, what is the stage of the crop, what is the stress in the crop, and what is the yield of that particular crop. Now, this information becomes a gold mine for every value chain player to come and interact. So if you're a trader, if you're ITC and you're interested in a certain variety of paddy in growing in Orissa, you want to procure, then actually tell you that which of the areas this particular paddy is growing. And if you're a single farmer, like we are working with banks right now, What happens is the farmer goes to a bank for a particular loan. And when we're talking about smallholder farmers, the challenge for him is very high, right? The bank is not interested because the unit economics for these enterprises doesn't work. I'm not interested to give a loan of 20,000 rupees to a farmer. But if the farmer comes and asks me for 3 lakh loan, my opportunity is higher. But what we're doing is using AI, we are reducing the cost of basically lending to the farmer. So when a farmer comes to the bank manager, he gives his land record number, that this is my land record number. And what we have done is we have smartly built a portal where we have processed the data of last 3 years for that particular land record. So we have known that in the last 3 years, without even sending a person, I can tell you that this was the crop which was grown by that particular farmer. This was the overall yield, and this would have been the income grown of the particular farmer. So when the bank opens my terminal, puts his land record number, he actually knows this is the entire profile of the farmer, and there is very less risk for him to go and lend. So with a farmer credible farmer scorecard, he can actually lend to that particular farmer. So using these technologies, now the farmer which was actually taking loan at 40, 50, or even 100% from a local money lender can get it at very, very fair rates between 10 to 20% and start his business, go to a high value crop and do this agriculture, right? So I think from a public-private partnership is really playing a stronger role. And even the central government focus, if you talk about these days, that the government is talking about building an agri stack, that the government also wants to know that where are my farmers, what are they doing, what crop is being grown. And if I have a common agri stack, just like an Aadhaar stack, then there are so many of these agri-tech players which can actually come and bring in much more services for the farmers. And that is where the transformation is going to happen. And I see that that's going to happen in a fairly sooner time that, as we see.
Kunal, I have a question that people who've got the money, like through your, through the system that you've created, so do the farmers feel that, okay, now with this happening, it's a new world, it's a new fair playing field for them? Have you interacted with them, and have you on ground heard the sentiment?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like the farmers have really benefited, right? So when you go and actually the farmer gets the money at 10 to 12% interest rate from the bank without a monthly hassle, right? It's real value for the farmer, because he is not requested to come to the bank 5 times and deposit this copy, that copy. Then the person goes for verification, verifies that, asks for the farmers. He loses his patience because the season has come, the day has come, he has to sow his seeds and doesn't have the money to sow the seeds, right? So that cycle time reduces from a month to a couple of days, and that's a real value for the farmer, right? And we have seen with so many farmers, even Sammoniti does the same thing, right? It reduces cycle time for lending to the farmer, and the farmer sees a value, right? And we have also worked with banks which in the private sectors which are doing that particular activity. I think this is going to be a game changer in the coming time. When the farmer has money, he can select his crop and do the agriculture in the way that he wants.
And you're getting rid of those monster money lenders, right? Which we all would have heard stories in our own family circle, back home, the money lenders and how debt-ridden farmers become. So this is so powerful use of technology. Yeah, yeah. Anil.
If I may just come in here, one of our biggest learnings has been that localization is an important dimension to take care of the farmer's requirements. The same value chain operates in different ways in different geographies. And in fact, one of the reasons why Sammoniti got into a FPO route was we started off in dairy value chain in Tamil Nadu, where there are no FPOs which procure milk. It is the individuals who aggregate milk. And when we looked at expanding into Gujarat is when we realized that this individual is replaced by the Doodh Utpadak Sanghs, the societies. The dimension is the same. You are aggregating the produce and providing a collective benefit, but the organization being replaced by an individual. And one salient feature in all of this is localization. How can you provide the same service to suit the local requirement in the local language in a manner that suits the local geography? And one of the biggest challenges that banks have, because I have also been on the other side, and I started my career with Canara Bank in a rural branch, is banks approach this market as one size fits all, which is difficult. It's difficult. And two, because one size does not fit all, is when you need to customize. The moment you start looking at customization, then your OPEX goes up.
Yeah.
And that is where you need to balance between a smallholder farmer with a fragmented land holding, with a customized proposition, and then you don't have the wherewithal to be able to provide that service, is when products get designed in a way where instead of you offering a service to to everyone, you will start looking at, okay, what structure brings in as many people as possible. Then you have a parameterized product, and whoever fills in that parameter is check, and you are eligible to get it. So we feel localization can be done without adding to OPEX through the aggregations. And there is a question in the Q&A box, why 500, 600 farmers are required. For a farmer producer organization, you don't need so many. You can actually have 50 people as well as a producer group, or the FIG that CM mentioned. But what is more important is, can you do batch processing? And the other thing that I would like to add to what Kunal said, and Samunati has been a beneficiary of Croppin's technology. Two biggest challenges, constraints, and risks that bankers have is monitoring capability and end use verification. And both these are often the reasons why the loan becomes sticky. You don't know what the money has gone for. How can you monitor in a way where it does not add cost to you? And is there a propensity of an income accruing, because your repayment happens only when there is a harvest? And a technology like Croppin or satellite imagery does these two things in a remote manner, in a cost-efficient manner at scale. And that is where there is a beautiful alignment of incentives, where a lender is designed to lend.
Yeah.
But the money that is being lent has to be from a dimension of getting it back. And how do you make it happen? If it is used for the purpose for which it is borrowed, which is the intended end use, and handhold the activity so that there is an income at the end of the tunnel, and from that income is when the repayment comes. So satellite imagery answers the question of scale vis-a-vis the reach.
Anil, I have a question to ask you.
Yeah.
Sorry. I have a question to ask you. And it's very important here is that you have built a very successful organization, if I may say so, and disbursed 6,000 crores. But earlier, 10, 15 years back, you remember we had the microfinance crisis and SKS microfinance, and there was a fear around the sector, right? Like the monies don't come back, and there were so many questions. But today you have built a very significant NBFC in a very significant high impact sector. If you had to tell us 2-3 things, how you've been able to do that and why you've been able to do that, future entrepreneurs, people looking at this space can pick up, if I may say so.
Sure. Firstly, Shraddha, the numbers that Samunati has is still a rounding off error compared to what agriculture sector in India represents. As they say, "Oont ke muh mein jeera." It is too small. Too small. Two, the fact that agriculture is diversified, and the fact that you cannot have a product-led approach to agriculture is the first learning that we have. So we went about looking at how do we provide services that are relevant, and you cannot be just a lender in agriculture. That's the point that I was making earlier. Market linkages play a significant role. And there are two kinds of players in any value chain structure: an internal player in the value chain, the external player in the value chain. The external player in the value chain sits on the fence, looks at protecting himself from the possible delinquencies through collateralization, through surrogates in terms of last 3 years financials, tax returns, all of that, only to make sure that there is an economic activity and there is a propensity of getting my money back because it has come back earlier. That's what all the underwriting is all about. But in agriculture, the best way to engage is engage as a partner, as an internal player in the value chain. You cannot be sitting on the fence. And that is what led us to have Samunati Agro, which is a subsidiary of Samunati Finance, which does all the market linkages. And that also led to we having a dedicated vertical that provides the institution building. Now, institution building for us is not a CSR activity. It's not a do-good activity, but it is a risk mitigation, because a lender is as safe as the strength of the borrower. If the borrower is not strong, your money is not safe. So how do we build that capability in the borrower to be able to handle that money? Two, this FPO has an immense potential to scale, but scale can happen if there is an underlying strength to scale. And that scale is not only for them. That scale also brings in new business for us. So engaging in institution building of FPO in a way is building our future business. Going back to aligning the incentives. So it's important to be an internal player in the value chain, important to participate in the value chain. And at Samunati, we have about 600 years of banking experience. But what we are more enthused about is we have more than 50 domain experts, people who have been from the procurement space, people from the commodity exchanges space, people from the resource institutions and capacity building space. They are not bankers. So you need to build that complementarity to understand what agriculture is.
Are you going for an IPO sometime?
No, we don't know. I don't know.
That would be huge, huge. Yeah. But you have the scale. You have all the right scale. Yeah. So coming back to everyone, if one of the and correct me if I'm wrong, one of the not fears, but one of the constraints in the mind is that agriculture space is so directly related to politics, right? And it has been traditionally, it has been governments get decided. Farmers are the biggest voices when it comes to who gets elected, and that's why for many people stay away, because there's a fear that there'll be a lot of regulations, lot of monitoring, lot of middlemen in the way. So it's a tough space to build business. Did you face that? Do you think that? And what do you think we need to do so that this becomes as open as building a consumer internet business in a country?
Shraddha, I might take on this, but more likely other people have right answers. Yes, you're right in your observation that agriculture space is heavily government dependent, and there are a lot of laws which actually governs all of these people. But having said that, the space is so large, it has got a space for everybody. I think that's fundamental my belief, wherein because that's a huge opportunity. And some of these laws now, it could be recent the recent farm laws and all, are actually startup friendly, if you ask me, and wherein they give enough power for some of these tech players to come and see that can they have the role to play. All they need is the initial proof of concept, which technology is able to do it out. Like, for example, what Kunal is doing now, if at all we are able to monitor the satellite, the crops, what is it healthy or not, now that becomes an institutional power for most of the bank lenders. Okay, whatever we are actually banking on is not going waste. So these are all like these are like top down and bottom up approach. Government has been working from the bottoms up for years together now. I think there is a right time for us from a technology per se, where we are coming from the top. I think enough has been heard and been discussed that these two synergies is what makes something magic, not only bottoms up or not only the tops down. Because let's say, for example, the internet space, what you mentioned, had government has not put it in the necessary infrastructure, in the internet company wouldn't have made any impact over there. So similarly, in the agriculture space, a lot of this creation, it could have FPOs or it could be of the APMC mandis. These have been an experiential learning for most of us, and most of our hypotheses get built on it. So I would more see that as a complementary rather than a hurdle, what I see personally. But there is enough space for everybody is what my take would be on this, Shraddha.
But CM, I have a question. That internet was free, and that's why businesses could get built, and then regulation comes.
Exactly.
But in agriculture and agri-space, there are so many regulations, and then you have to build a business. So how easy is it?
So I can take this question, Shraddha, and I know exactly where you're coming from, because we have been facing these questions since years, and I will give a very generic answer that the good or the bad part with the sector is that it has a history. Okay, and that's where people have their own misconception or prejudices. There are regulation, but no regulation stops you, to work in a way how you want to. Right? Yes, there is a question of efficiency or some bit of inefficiency, but as such, because of regulation, it's not binary. It's not 0 or 1. Okay. Even with the APMC Act, it's not like that, that you cannot source directly from farmers. No, you will have to apply for APMC license. Okay. Another misconception, the government, in fact, they are doing already everything. Then why startups are needed at all, right? Government, they are just creating the ecosystem. They are not supposed to transact with farmers, and neither they want to. Okay, so effectively they build the ecosystem so that people can come and they can start providing services. And I know, again, there are long list, but I think that's the reason why this sector, it does require time or sort of resilience, where you started this entire conversation. And people, they have their own set of questions are being answered with respect to time, and the answer is just one, and that's the scale.
Yeah.
If you are doing a monthly run rate of 60-70 crore, if Croppin is working with millions of farmers, if Samunati is disbursing thousands of loan, that's the only answer to all these questions. You cannot answer these prejudices or these questions in words. And that's why it took time. That's why now people are open to kind of, or now there is an acceptance for agri-tech startups, right? That's why now you are getting 3x, 4x multiplier. That's why you are.
That's why I have such respect for all of you over the years. Just staying, not giving up, endurance or resilience, remarkable. Yes, please continue. Yes.
So I would say it's not just us. I strongly believe that any of the entrepreneurs who have come to this sector, they were mentally prepared that, boss, it will take time.
Right? Were you prepared? It will take time when you started?
It will take time, right? I mean, I was.
So time takes in every business. Honestly, it takes time.
Honestly speaking, there was no timeline.
Yeah.
There was a goal. Right? There was a problem statement to solve, but there was no timeline.
Yeah.
Right? But yes, so I think that's what I had to say to your question. That like there are a lot of let's say myth, like there are NPAs, right? I mean, like we often generalize few of the specific statements for the entire nation, right? Where the sector it has a lot of diversity, right? A myth like farmers always buy agri input on credit, right? Or for example, there is some chopal somewhere, then why are you needed at all? Right? Or government is buying at MSP, then why are you needed at all? That's not the case, boss, right? Whoever is working or whoever has been working, it's just a single droplet in the ocean. But I think that's where agri-tech startups are working, that that good part is that now we are showing scale.
Yeah.
Right. And those questions are being answered with scale. That's the only option. And even like with banks, with investors, I think that's the same reason, right? Why people are coming forward. Because earlier they had a sense that that hey, it's very difficult to scale in this sector, then why to put money?
Yeah. Right?
That was a simple kind of a notion. But now when they are seeing that people are doing significant run rate, people have significant traction, people are going regional to national, so then investors are coming forward, and they cannot find better sector than this, right? Where it is possible to build a profitable large business, unlike, no offense, but unlike consumer internet or unlike cab aggregation industry for that matter.
Kya jawab hai, Mr. Shashank?
So Shraddha, since we are in winter, I just have only one analogy to say, and this is more an entrepreneur giving an advice to fellow entrepreneurs, right? This is a fire. You stay away from it, you don't get the warmth. Go too close, you will get consumed. So you need to have the wisdom and diligence to get the warmth and do what you are intended to do, which is pursue your mission.
Yeah. Kunal.
Yeah. I think wisdom is flowing. It's so good to hear everyone. Yeah. So I think
hard-earned wisdom, on the ground learned wisdom, and that's why this wisdom is priceless. Yes.
This wisdom would be like quite a interesting thing for all young entrepreneurs who are trying to do something new, right? I think it takes years to learn that. But yeah, on my points, like I think government is always very supportive to startups and agri-tech players, right? Because it's 55% of the population, and these are the marginalized population. if you're doing anything good for them, there's no one who's going to stop it, right? I think the challenge that is there is that there was a status quo, that the farmers knew that this is the way of life, right? And we are challenging those status quo, that this equilibrium has to change. There has to be
Yeah.
new, you have to get more, right? Something that was shared by the ecosystem in between has to be moved past to both the sides, towards the consumer and towards the farmer. Now that will obviously have some friction that will be created, right? And but whatever is in the right intent for the farmers and for the last consumer, I think the entire ecosystem will take the shape around that, and startups will have to play that leverage that opportunity and get in and find their own spaces, right? And as everyone was talking about, it's a very large space, right? 140 million farmers, like, all across. You will always have the right spot for you to come and play a role. So that's my words. And working with the government would be really very like, important step, because if you want to go to scale, there is no private company which can give you the scale that a state government or central government can go and do. So work with them closely. I think that's going to give you the success in the future.
So Shashank, you have to go, but before you go, my last two questions to all of you. And then Shashank, if you can answer, because I think you have to leave, is what would be your expectation from the government to grow this space, to grow the agri-tech? Because all said and done, we are having this conversation, but it's still 1% right now, at 1%. So what would you ask from the government? And second, what to you is the green shoot opportunity in the agri-tech space, which would, tell everyone watching today?
For the upcoming budget, Shraddha, I think if that's the question, so see few of the schemes few of the schemes had been introduced in last budget and in last few months, like Udan scheme, your Agri Infra Fund, right? Then FPOs, focus on FPOs. I think so. Like, these are the top 3 picks by me. Simple reason, again, with the same kind of logic or philosophy what I said in the beginning, that these are the 3 things, or top 3 things probably, which bring ecosystem for any of the player to come forward, right? And it creates an ease for them to work with farmers or other stakeholders, right? I mean, infra is very much needed in this space, right? If there is a scheme where someone can build an infra close to farm gate at just sort of cost of capital of 2 to 3% per annum, I think that's a good scheme, right? Similarly, the FPOs, right? At CM and Anil, they have already mentioned, right? The biggest challenge for anyone is to reach out to farmer. If FPO is nothing but a group of farmers and government is focusing on FPOs, the focus has to be on the strengthening of FPOs as well, not just the building on FPO. I think that is another thing I'm expecting. But of course, I mean, I'm sure this journey, it's a process. So imagine, like, if there will be thousands of FPOs in a digitized way, right? For anyone, it will be much easier to reach out to farmer and kind of, from very first day, they can start writing on the slate, right? Rather than putting effort to build the slate at all. And then the third is Udan, right? I mean, again, which is all about logistics. I mean, there are many instances where farm produce is available, but just because of the poor connectivity, poor logistics system, right? I mean, it could not reach out to the best possible market. So from my side, it's a long list, but the good part is, so these are the 3 top picks from my side. But I'm expecting a good budget in agriculture, considering a lot of new things they at least they started focusing last year, like soil test, like loan and insurance to farmers, like your aquaculture, right? I mean, right. So it was a good mix of scheme from their side. More or less the similar thing I'm expecting, apart from those top 3 picks. And but again, I mean, on this subject, my constant answer is that it's not just about building the policy. The important thing is the execution. The state and center has to be aligned, considering agri is a state subject in India, right? Yeah. I think that's where government has to think that, that whatever policy, whatever budget we are bringing, but how it will reach to the last mile, right? That's not possible unless and until you or state government, you're not aligned, guys. So I think that's the blanket statement. I think last year also I gave this statement to YourStory when they asked my take on budget. The green shoot is that is that like, and again, I always say that, that the sector requires many more agri-tech startups, many more Kunal, Anil, CM, Shashank, everyone, right? And there are huge possibilities. What drives any entrepreneur to start their entrepreneurial journey is scale, right? That's not the question in this sector. Okay, right? Another driver is like, okay, is there any footprints or not? 10 years ago, there was no footprint, but now there are footprints to be followed. Last but not least, investors, in fact, like, so they are finding this sector again, and all stage, right? Whether it's seed or late stage. So it means that clearly means that, that yes, I mean, there are a lot of opportunity, especially around data, technology, image processing, or maybe food processing at all. The good part is the stage or type of entrepreneurship, again, that's diversified. If you want to be focused on just one district, even though kind of, you can build a large business, or you want to just go around your stint related to data at a national level, that is possible too. So it's totally up to you. So it's a large ocean.
So Shashank, it's all about scale. So are we going to see you become, though I'm not a very huge fan of the word, but it symbolizes scale. Are we going to see DeHaat become a unicorn this year?
Very difficult to answer, Shraddha. And as I said, that, like when we started, there was no timeline. There was a goal, but there was no timeline, right? But probably I'll flip the question but yes, if that's the question for the sector, and if at all that is the parameter of success, okay, so then for sure the sector, will have few unicorns or few sunicorns in next 1 year or so. Simple reason is that now, like, there are a bunch of people who have raised more than 125 million.
Yeah.
Right? There are quite a few people who have raised 30 to 50 millions, right? And of course, again, there is a long list of people who have raised recently 22 kind of, $30 million or so. That clearly means that their next raise will be close to 100 to 200 million dollars.
Yeah.
That means, of course, you will be closer to the unicorn status again. Secondly, what I said, that again, with respect to scale, with respect to the potential being visible to investor, you're getting good multipliers as well, right? Earlier, this was just 1x, 2x, or maybe 8x or 10x to your EBITDA, or 1x, 2x to your top line. Now that multiplier is going up. Again, that's another probability, right, to see that status. Last not the least is the traction. I mean, I've had 50 to 70 crore monthly run rate. There are many of us kind of doing that, right? That means reaching to 150, 200 crore of monthly run rate, that is something what everyone will be eyeing in next financial year. That's again another parameter. But again, as I said, if that is the parameter of success, then you will see few unicorns and many sunicorns in next 1 year.
But I'm going to generalize this, but Shashank, you, Kunal, Anil, CM, all of you, anyways, the criteria of the basic success of doing something to create impact for the most marginalized community or section in a country, you guys have already established that, right? Because by choosing this and choosing this domain, which I again have to say is not sexy, not cool, you guys are making it cool. So that success, 100 on 100. But it's the scale, what you're saying, which will make this success, this AgriTech mainstream, is what you were saying. So yeah, and we hope that you go on to have unprecedented scale. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Yeah, so Anil, Kunal and CM, I have the same question. What would be your expectation from the government, from the budget? Budget is 2 days down the corner, but what's your expectation from the government? And what are some of the green shoots that you're seeing in this space?
Right. So, Shraddha, from the government and budget perspective, I feel if the focus is on the intended beneficiary being reached, if the focus is on making things work, happen, matter for the smallholder farmers or for the intended beneficiaries, if that is the objective of scheme, I think the vehicle should become agnostic, or the process of how to reach the intended beneficiary should not matter so much. What we see is a lot of schemes, wonderfully designed, design structure, products, subsidized schemes, what have you, often fail because the vehicle that is chosen to take that scheme to the intended beneficiary is often not prepared, not equipped, not willing, or not efficient enough to take that there. And more often than not, these are the banks and financial institutions in the old era that are often the beneficiaries of all these schemes. While there were no other vehicles at that point in time to take schemes government beautifully designed to the intended beneficiaries, gone are the days of choiceless situation in every aspect of our life. Now there are many entities, there are fintech, agtech, payment banks and small finance banks and what have you. There are multiple ways in which the intended beneficiary can be reached out, and hence a humble request to all the people who are designing these schemes is just widen the horizon, not one at the exclusion of the other. You say all the existing guys plus anyone who has the capability, and define that anyone. It could be fintech, it could be agtech companies, it could be even FPOs for that matter. Can you expand the horizon so that the intended beneficiaries get the benefit of it? Would be one dimension that I would bring in, because any impact has two dimensions: good product structuring backed by a fantastic execution capability.
Yeah.
One at the exclusion of the other will make it not successful, will not make the intended beneficiary reap the benefit of what it is. If the objective is the beneficiary, then you have to look at both the aspects of design and deployment, strategy and execution, both dimensions. And who is the which is the right vehicle? Who are the sets of people who can make me reach the intended beneficiary? Could be one. Green shoots, two dimensions. A lot of private sector being enthused about agriculture, private capital being available for agriculture, and a lot of youngsters, entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs, people who would not have understood where where we get our food, how the agriculture is indeed managed as a process. Many youngsters are taking a look at agriculture for their entrepreneurial pursuits.
Yeah,
that for me is huge. I'll just give you one data point on that. As Samunati, we work with ecosystem players, and till 15th of August, we had worked with about 35 startups, and we had deployed about 100 crores for them. Till 15th of August. Now, 15th of August, we launched an online platform called Samaram for startups in agriculture. And from 15th of August till now, we have had 165 genuine startups applying for either working capital or mentoring support or for access to our farmers through the FPO.
Wow.
160 in the 4 months. And look at the universe. And if you look at ThinkAg report, there are more than 2,000 startups and 500 of them reasonably sized startups. This energy is not accident, right? And what we are also seeing is a huge, collaborative ecosystem developing, something similar to the Silicon Valley, dimension when the dot-com companies sprung up in the early 90s. We are seeing that, the larger player working with a smaller player in agriculture because they know there is a symbiotic relationship. There is a collective benefit by working together. And that ecosystem is an important ecosystem. And we will see the kind of boom that the tech companies got thanks to the Silicon Valley kind of an ecosystem happening in India. And that's a wave. A wave cannot be stopped or created by individuals. A wave happens because the time is right for it. And this is the time for agriculture, I would say.
Anil, I'm feeling so energized listening to you because there's so much of authenticity. And yes, we'd love to know, and maybe in later conversation, what are some of the startups that you're seeing and what are some of the different startups, and we should have a separate conversation on that. Yeah.
Sure. So, Shraddha, if I may go next, what I would see the ask is, I think I was recently part of the Agri Startup Policy in Government of Karnataka. I think this particular budget, I'm certainly expecting that government is going to put heavily focus on agri sector, particularly to their incubator or accelerators or some of these models, the colleges models where they're going to take. So that in turn will flourish more and more entrepreneurs, because the one what we have submitted for Government of Karnataka has a ambitious goal of producing more than 5,000 plus agri startups. And again, they are not expecting that everybody should be coming in unicorn kind of structure, but at least a guy who can do it from a regional level. about 25 crores, 30 crores, 100 crores. So a lot of these cluster-based things will come. I think one of the panelists was mentioning earlier, a lot of these sectors require localization, and who better is the local part. And
Anil.
so that's where it happens more. And also this rural sector transformation, I feel that it's always a tough terrain to penetrate in, but people with hard belief and conviction, I think they can make wonders. In fact, when I reached in Hubli in 2015, nobody believed that an ecosystem even possible. But I think these are the strength of an entrepreneur, the tenacity, the focus, the purpose, what each and every entrepreneur bring to the table is something what government is watching. And I'm pretty sure in the upcoming budget, there would be some extraordinarily benefiting coming for agriculture sector, is what my core belief is. And from the green shoot perspective, with having these sort of policies around, this is the time where startups shouldn't shy away in working with government. I think Kunal rightly mentioned, agriculture is a government topic. You cannot ignore it. However effective or however ineffective they are, you cannot complain about it. And I believe that entrepreneurs have lost the ability to complain the day when they have chosen to be an entrepreneur. So for them, everything is an opportunity. And that itself is so big. I think this opportunity is going to be the green shot where I'm at least convinced, like Shashank was a little modest, but I'm pretty convinced looking at this sector, there are going, because the scale what this sector brings in, I'm not sure, other than the only sector which I compare is healthcare, and these two are so divergent sector which has a lot of potential to enormously impact the billions of life. And VCs are forced to look at this sector, and this is why you see that recent wave climbing up on the investment side. I am pretty sure at least we will see 2 to 3 minimum unicorns coming in this sector, if that's the benchmark what startup has to be looked at. And why we need some of these trendsetters is because it opens up thousands of entrepreneurs to come and look at this sector. And I am working in this sector predominantly to make this sexy and glamorous sector, because it is not something we have to glamorify the sector. It's not that it is it has a business. It has, and already few of the panelists like Kunal, Anil, and Shashank shown that there is a business. It is not that we are working for it. And the moment when you touch the conscience of farmer, believe me, Shraddha, the satisfaction what we get as an entrepreneur cannot be matched to any investment what we raise. That farmer who earns about 70 to 80,000 per annum, if he is able to make the 10,000 extra, 15,000 extra, or 20,000 extra, he will actually treat us as a god. And that's what this sector has is all about it. So that's my final say on this particular question. What you actually put it out to us.
Yeah, there's a huge purpose. And the purpose lives every day in the work that you do when it comes to this space. It's very clearly, obviously visible. You know, CN Patil, when you said that you'll make this sector sexy and glamorous, I have no doubt. Like 4 years, my God, the way you chased and made Hubli startup ecosystem, your tenacity is commendable. So we are looking forward to what all you are going to do. Yes, Kunal.
Yeah, I think very well articulated earlier. Like from my perspective, I see that the current budget is going to be very, very focused on agriculture. I mean, the last several months, the thing that's happening, I think the government would be committed to prove their point that no, this is what they are trying to deliver, so that the impact could be seen by every single farmer. I think the focus of the government this year would be substantially on agriculture. That's what I could foresee. In terms of some of the important components, because if you see the fundamental budget that the government brings in, there are some fixed components which is already there, like earmarked for long-term projects, 5-year, 6-year, 10-year projects, which is already there. But in the recent years, if you see the focus of the government in bringing technology in every aspect of delivering services to the farmers is strengthening, right? You talk about the PM Kisan, and everyone talks about 25 million farmers directly getting their money in their accounts by the single click of a button. I mean, that is massive amount of value that is being created for the farmer, right? I think that is going to scale up with the coming times. Then if you see, the government is also talking about AI, right? AI, I mean, India is now trying to be the AI capital of the world. And if you see AI, the biggest value, if you see, AI can actually bring in the field of agriculture, where you have so many more farmers, right? In AI, if you see what the government is doing right now is the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, which is one of their flagship insurance projects in India. I mean, the third largest in the world. They are bringing AI to support that particular scheme, right? From earlier, which was all happening manually, they are using satellite technology, AI technology to find out the yield of the farmer and provide the insurance benefit within a month's time to the farmer, which was taking months and years together, right? So there has been proven model for government to see that the technology delivery model is much more valuable. It really creates a transparency and builds the trust for all the ecosystem player. And I think in this current budget, that is certainly going to be playing an important role. So from what has happened in the past, like I also see that the in the green shoots in that trend, like agriculture has not seen a dip, and thankfully, like if you see the entire COVID period, the only industry which has seen a positive trend, right, is agriculture, 3.4% positive, and rest of all the industry was all negative, right? Which means it's the fundamental industry which has to always prosper. And in the coming times, I see with all of these newer generation agripreneurs coming into picture, newer technologies, with the vision of the government to make India as the food ball of the world, right? And that's what some of these policies and some of the initiatives around agri infrastructure, so that the losses should not happen when the farm produce is ready for supply chain, things on that, access to capital, so that the farmer can actually grow high value crops and increase their income opportunities. I think from the time of selection of the seed, giving them the money in their account so that they can select the crops, to help them grow with the right set of advisories, bring climate smart agriculture into practice, help them with the market linkage, help them with the storage facilities in their local areas, in their farm gates, and help them connect to markets. Let the market come and talk to Indian farmers directly and not be dependent on regulations which were actually challenges earlier. So I think this year is going to be the year where a lot of transformation is going to happen. And both from the private sector, there are opportunities, and the government will obviously enable any of these initiatives which can create value on a longer term basis. So I'm very bullish about this current year, at least. It's going to be transformational in the agriculture sector.
On that note, this year is going to be transformational for the agri sector. And thank you to all of you, because you are in your own ways, in your own businesses, making sure that the transformation is happening, and you've done that. And thank you so much, because this is very encouraging. I also feel that as as your story, I think we've not done enough justice in terms of bringing agriculture and agri-tech entrepreneurs. Though Kunal, you can't blame, and neither can Shashank, both of you, because when you started, we did the story. But I think we have to bring this conversation more and more and do more of this year. Thank you. This is very encouraging and yeah, very inspiring. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, team. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.